Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and I'm back in my recording closet for the second day. And in this video, we're going to be covering the development panel. I didn't have enough time to get through to the development panel on the first day, but I'm going to try to get through this real quick because the majority of this dev panel, after going through some significant tech issues, ended up being just largely covering 4 new jobs and their evolved combat system. So if you didn't see the opening keynote, we are now going to have 2 different combat systems for the original 21 jobs. There's going to be Reborn mode and there's going to be Evolved mode. Reborn mode is very much more feeling like the way the jobs already played prior to the expansion. And Evolved mode, the best way I could think to describe it, especially after seeing this and who developed it, is more like the PvP modes where there's a lot more button consolidation and there's a lot more optimization of button uses and their functionalities depending on targets. And it's also, for many jobs, a completely different play style than the one that they have with Reborn mode. So for this panel, they brought on the person largely in charge of this, Hikaru Tamaki, also known as Mr. Prime, who has a decent history with Final Fantasy XIV. He's been working on the game since A Realm Reborn. Actually was someone who just interviewed Yoshi P and then got a job. That's not that surprising. One time I interviewed Yoshi P and he asked me to learn Japan and apply for a job. So if I knew Japanese, maybe this would have been my job at some point. Maybe it would have been me doing this. But he's worked on a ton of systems. He's worked on a bunch of fights. He's worked on job design, 2.4 Ninja, 3.0 Machinist. He's worked on Eden's versus Refulgence, Shiva, which is a great fight. He's worked on Chaos. And he's worked on a handful of other things. So he's got a really good pedigree. But the big thing that he's worked on historically is PvP. He's actually responsible for a lot of the modern PvP designs. And so I feel like that's very reflected in his work with Evolved mode. And you know what? That's a good thing. Since 6.1 PvP, as you can see right here, a lot of people have been saying, hey, PvP has really good job identity. And I think it's a little easier to express in PvP, but they have very few buttons. There's all the things that, like, people like myself would say, like, oh, I don't want that in PvE. Oh, that's too easy, you know? Like, oh, you know, 1-button combos and, like, look how few buttons there are. I don't want that for PvE. That works good for PvP because it's dynamic. But one thing that can't be ignored, again, is that job identity in PvP is incredibly strong. And so a lot of people since 6.1 have theorized it has been a testing ground. And I thought, yeah, I could see that. But do I think it'll ever like really be fully PvP? No. I have said this. I'm on record saying this. So you got to eat my words because they are kind of doing that. It's a little more technical than that even. But that being said, I can't like help but draw the comparisons to it overall. So as we get into what Evolved mode is, they use Paladin as an example. Like I said, they went over 4 different jobs and their evolved modes. But they used Paladin kind of as like the baseline. So you can see kind of what the button consolidation looks like, if I can actually find the screen here, for Reborn mode versus Evolved mode. And Paladin is a really good example because Paladin's not that different in Evolved mode. It has a couple of core elements that are shown, but I think that's going to be reflected in Reborn mode changes too for the job. So I wouldn't say they're Evolved mode exclusive. They even said their goal with Paladin was more to simplify than to give a different play style. So for example, obviously they have 1-button combos for their fast blade combo, you know, so you can see here 3 buttons on the left, 1 button on the right. And I'll be honest, while some of this is obviously PvP centric, I think PvP put it into people's heads a lot more than it already was. But I'll say the quiet part out loud. People have been modding doing this already for months and months. So I do feel like part of this is seeing the degree of interest that people who do use mods have been expressing when it comes to doing 1-button combos. I think they feel more confident than ever. And also by allowing the old option with Reborn mode, doing that as well. Besides, it really doesn't. Viper and Picto kind of already use Evolved mode, if you think about the way they're worked. Like their buttons work a certain way, so it's a little different. But I mean, again, even jobs like Monk have, you know, Evolved mode, you know, 1-button combos that end up working out. So that's part of the change. But another big thing is consolidating buttons. Paladin has a lot. So this is another, again, great example. They get, like, Evolved mode doesn't have Bulwark, but the other defensives have more things to them. We don't know how much in regards to the follow-up actions, because some of these have new buttons or things involved when we get into involvement. We don't know how much of that is evolved mode exclusive. I'm going to actually assume not a lot with Paladin. But the 4 remaining actions on the right are a little stronger to compensate not having Bulwark, which I think most people are okay with. Then they get into some of the other button consolidation things that they're doing. For example, instead of having Holy Spirit and, sorry, I just woke up, having Holy Spirit and Clemency, we have Divine Justice, which when you're targeting an opponent becomes Holy Spirit, and when you're targeting an ally it becomes Clemency. That's one of those more kind of just logical button combination things, where it's focusing on your targeting being the skill check and not the amount of buttons you have being the skill check. It also means, in theory, if you don't like this, but you like everything else in Evolved mode, you could make a targeting macro. You can make like one that's Divine Justice opponent, Divine Justice, ally, if that's something that just appeals to you, or you could just play in Reborn mode. So there are all sorts of ways to kind of go around that. And I think you will probably see people using certain macros to make parts of this easier if there's someone who struggles with a targeting aspect. But I also think a lot of people, if they do find that part more difficult, or just they prefer having more buttons, but then that's what Reborn mode is for. But some more consolidations. Provoke in Evolved mode is both Provoke and Shirk. Again, target opponent, Provoke, target ally, Shirk. A lot of people make Shirk macros. So again, this is another example of, I wouldn't be surprised if people still actually macro it. But I mean, that's up to them. The way people decide to use this, or if they just want to stick with the old mode, again, is entirely up to them when it comes to Paladin in particular. Interject also has the low stun applied to it, so that's not a target thing. That's just a consolidation, outright consolidation. And I think that's all they show from here. I think they go in-game after this, yes. Then they go in-game and we get some look at Paladin changes. So this is huge. Nobody expected this. People wanted it. I wanted it, but nobody expected this. To actually get in-game footage of job changes this far out. It's never happened. Media Tour has been the only time we get job changes, other than the live letter that comes out like days before Media Tour information. So it's huge that they actually were like, you know what, we got a bunch of in-progress stuff. It's so early, it could change. But at the very least, it communicates what they want to do, even if they're going to change what's there. It's smart. It's something they should have been doing ages ago, and I'm glad they decided to do it. So this is every button pretty much for Paladin. And you can see how the button consolidation works. There are some other core job changes that are present, and the gauges are incomplete. There's the, quote, defense gauge and the honor gauge. The honor gauge is really just timing, how long you have for Blade of Honor. It's not really, honest, it doesn't really matter. These are just in-depth things. And defense, I think, is every time they proc one of their new gameplay systems for Paladin. And the crest is going to be part of that gameplay system as well. So they have their basic 3-hit combo, and that will go into Expatiation Avowed. Expatiation, instead of being a 30-second frequency at which you complete your combo. So when you're doing other things, you won't have Expatiation come up, but you could prep an Expatiation proc ahead of doing a combo if you need to like burst something down, for example. And that's kind of like the core. So instead of giving the bonus cast or the instant freebie cast for Holy Spirit or Clemency, it does that instead now, your basic combo. Whereas the bonus cast of Divine Justice in this case comes directly off of your Confiteor or your Imperator in this case. The Imperator combo here, you can see they press this and then do the combo. And it has, it's healing themselves still. It's giving them the bonus thing right here. And yeah, and then you can see they have the Divine Justice that's been lit up. Now, in terms of other changes that we can spot during this, obviously you can see they provoke Shirk, and they do go over that. But we can also show a few other changes. 1-2 Shield Lob and 1-2 Wings. I always just call it Wings. I don't know the name. And then on top of that, we have a new basic change, and they actually cover this later in more detail. Retaliatory Swipe. This is Shield Swipe. I love Shield Swipe. It was one of my favorite things about Paladin. But when you use Holy Shield, if you block an attack during that first buffed 4 seconds, then you get a stronger counterattack. And if you just block it at any point during Holy Shield, if you receive an attack, you get a weaker counterattack. That's what the crest is over on the right-hand side when they're showing the gauge. So You see he gets hit by the swipe and then does answering strike back because it hit during the weaker point of the Holy Shield. And then if they time it better, if it's within the first 4 seconds, then they get a better counterattack Code of Satisfaction, and then it gives them the Satisfaction Crest, and then bam, they can do Satisfaction Strike back. And if you're wondering, the second Paladin, that's Yoshi P. That has nothing to do. That's not like a Paladin, like, that's not a mechanic. That's Yoshi P running around on Paladin as well as the dev here. And that's going to be a core gameplay mechanic of not only Paladin, but actually it's going to be something that the other new tank does, as we learn later. It's part of the main tank role. We can also see that Wings is a follow-up attack now, which is an AoE heal. So when you use Wings, it gives you an AoE heal follow-up right there called Round Table. So it gives them a little bit of post-AoE healing. They've got, of course, the Provoke. But another big one, I think this is the last one before we really move on, is Shield Lob. So A, Shield Lob is AoE. And B, if you do Shield Lob from a distance, it's Shield Lob. If you do it for, oh, there's one other change, I just remembered it. Shield Lob from a distance is an AoE, Shield Lob, the way it works now. I wish the shield bounced, but it just does like an AoE effect. When you do it up close, it's an AoE stun. They said that Shield Bash is great for deep dungeons. They didn't want to take that away from Paladin, so they made it do that. I'm a little concerned about the fact that it's maybe it's not AoE, but there's a giant AoE around it. In terms of deep dungeon, I guess I'll just pull with Provoke because I would be very afraid to Shield Lob in that case. Or I guess you could also just pull with Divine Justice on an opponent at this point. There's one other change. Intercession had its damage removed, but it also has a PvP effect. If you Intercession to an enemy, okay, you Intercession to an enemy, whoop-de-doo, you gap close. If you Intercession to an ally, however, it's the PvP version of the skill. And it actually dashes to that person and gives them a cover. So they didn't get rid of cover, but this is exactly how it works in PvP when you dash to an ally. And again, he's the PvP dev, so no surprise. And you can still Holy Shield allies as well. In theory, I'd assume if you Holy Shield an ally, it doesn't give you the counterattack. If I'm guessing, because later he covers them and he takes a hit, and then gets a crest afterwards. But I think he does it to himself too. So like, yeah, he's like hitting, yeah, Blade of Valor. He's doing all that. I think he does an intercession here on the ally. Like they trigger the thing. And yeah, here it is. So you can see he does it on them. So he buffs himself. And oh, you know what though? I just realized if you cover somebody and then, okay, yeah, never mind. I see. That's true. If you cover the person and you use it on yourself, you would get the counterattack because you're going to be taking the swipe. So that's another way to actually use it. If you just give yourself the shield and cover someone, you can trigger your own counterattack. So that's another skillful way of actually using Intercession to get extra uses out of your Holy Shield in the case that maybe you just, don't want to use it on auto attacks on yourself, or there's an attack that just doesn't target you and you want to have a little bit more utility. So it's just a good use case. It's an additional use case for it. That's what we see for Paladin. Mostly the same, like it clearly plays very similarly. It's not too drastically different, but it's mostly about the button consolidation of the job itself and giving those buttons, individual buttons, more, purpose. Dragoon, on the other hand, they use as an example of a job that plays completely differently. Dragoon now has a focus on 3 major high damage positionals and some new jumps. So they have Sinister Drive, Dexter Drive, and Chaos Drive. Sinister Drive does bonus damage from the left. Dexter Drive does damage from the right, and after you've done both of those, you can do Chaos Drive from the rear, which is greatly enhanced by the positional. The other two are less, but Chaos Drive is more positionally driven. Those are like core to your gameplay, and as you do them, you actually unlock effects for Nastron. So you go from Gearskogel ready to Nastron ready, and then you also get, I believe, the follow-up. Let me watch it here. So yeah, you can see, does Sinister Drive, gets Gearskogel ready, because they've got Dragon's Bane or they're ready to go. If they do from the other side, here, you can see from Dexter Drive, now they have Nastron ready, and that also gave them Chaos Drive ready. And when they do Chaos Drive, right here, it also gives them a Wyrmwind Thrust. So now they have 1 stack of that. So you can basically, if you really just need to do like a really quick burst window on an opponent, let's say there's like an ad coming up or something, and you just need to burst it down quick and you don't have too many GCDs, just going straight for the Gear Skogul is probably okay. But in the case of like a long-term fight, your goal is to get to Nastron's ready with a Wyrmwind Thrust locked away. And you probably want to keep the Wyrmwind Thrusts ready as a whole. Now, because those positionals are so important, they also have Vengeful Jump, which is an off global that removes positional requirements and also does a bunch of damage. So if you wanted to, do your entire combo from a position that it kind of just acts like a more frequent button press version of True North. So you can see it being done here: Vengeful Jump, Sinister, Vengeful Jump, Dexter, Vengeful Jump, Winged Chaos. It's not called Chaos Drive, it's Winged Chaos now. I'm sorry. Chaos Drive is that's the old one. And then once you do all three of those, and you have all those ready, whenever you do 3 Vengeful Jumps, you fully stack Blood of the Dragon, and then you can enter a special combo string that comes exclusively from having all the stacks of Blood of the Dragon. This is specifically from doing Vengeful Jump 3 times for your Blood of the Dragon stack. So you do want to be using it fairly frequently. And it puts you into the Stardiver combo, which is a very rapid paced combo, where you go into, Life of the Dragon, you end with a Starcross and just do a bunch of damage. That also gives you access to Sky High. Yes, the PvP skill Sky High, which when you go into the air, you stay up there for a few seconds, and then you come crashing down in a really, really high damage AoE, so you can even move around like that. And then you even get the follow-up with the Heaven's Fall attack that comes afterwards. Now, in PvP, you're completely immune to damage. Currently in testing, they're giving Dragoons a 90% damage reduction while in Sky High. This is great. I have said I am perfectly okay with Dragoons having a skill button that they can use to avoid a ton of damage. I've said that before. So it's, again, Sky High PvP ability that's represented, good job identity, and to see it here is very good. So it can get really high-paced with the Vengeful Jumps. And then you can also, then you've also got your basic combo for when you don't have your Sinister and Dexter drives and whatnot. I don't remember if your basic combo also, I think your basic combo also gives you Wyrmwind Thrust stacks. I see they had 2, but I just want to see if they do the basic one. There's them doing all 3, and then they do the backflip, then they do the Vengeful. I'm trying to see if they do all of these. Yeah, where's the basic combo? Do the basic combo once. I forgot if the basic combo gives a stack. No, it looks like the basic, oh wait, no, that's because it's a 4-point combo, So it is a 4-part combo, but it didn't give them anything, so I think that's just your filler combo for when everything else isn't there. And yeah, that's kind of the basics of Evolved Dragoon. Doesn't really work the same way. It does have some kind, you still see the extended combos, they have the 4-part combo. They get a super long, fast combo with Stardiver, and on top of that they get follow-ups with Sky High, so they have a bunch of damage. The idea is to use things, to be somewhat consistent in using these things in a way that, just allows you to move around the arena a whole lot. You can see they're constantly backing out, they're constantly gap closing back, they still have their backflip, they have their ranged attacks. Heck, the jump backwards to Wyrmwind Thrust is a big PvP thing. It doesn't have bonus damage here, but it's really funny to see. But they're still kind of jumping all over the arena. They still have some of the longer combo strings, but the way they achieve their damage is done in an entirely different way. You can even see, I guess you could theoretically do a Gear Skogul right after an Astron if you really needed a lot of last-minute burst. But you can see they're still doing plenty of actions really fast. It's just a matter of, you have these positional requirements, you have these Vengeful Jumps. It's about managing those. And you might notice that there are no raid buffs on Dragoon. We'll talk about that a bit later. That is actually very much something that I've seen a bunch of people talk about it before, but like I said, we'll talk about it a bit later. White Mage, they said that one of the core identities of White Mage, and the reason a lot of people play it, it's probably the most played healer in the game, is because it's actually quite easy. So they didn't want to make a harder White Mage. They wanted to make a White Mage that better exemplified both what the hardcore players want, which is a high damage job, and what the more casual players want, where healing is an important part of the kit. So a big thing with White Mage now is that they have an ability called High Cure. It has a cast time, but it gives them Sanctity. And when they stack their Sanctity up, it improves the damage of one of their other skills. So you are rewarded for healing people by increasing the damage of another skill. It's trying to make most of your healing, at the very least, damage neutral. So that way you do not feel bad as a healer, and as a not healer, you're incentivized to use that and make the other skill stronger. So they take damage and they cast High Cure on themselves, and it buffs up their Sanctity a little bit, and then that will improve the damage of their other skill that they have. So you can see they have Sanctity stacks, so it's just giving them stacks of Sanctity, and then once they have enough, they do this big hit right there, Holy Sanctuary, and that damage consumes Sanctity and rewards you for healing. The big thing they want you to do is every time you heal, you should feel like your damage is a part of your healing, and you're not sacrificing one for the other. So the other thing is that all their cast times are instant now for their offensive skills. Glare 3 is instant. Glare 3 has a combo that follows up with it. So you have that Holy Sanctuary, you have Glare 3. I guess we don't know if Holy, I see Holy there, but I don't think they ever cast Holy throughout this. So I can't say if that's instant. It probably doesn't need to be, in all honesty, but yeah, you can see runs around, does this. And it looks like they still have lilies. I don't think they ever used the lilies throughout this, but I think I see a Flatus, I think the AoE of Flatus on the far left, somewhere over there. So I'm assuming that it's used for that, but it looks like they still have lilies for their usual bit. I'm assuming that means that the finale of Flatus for the Blood Lily is still there as well, but I'm not 100% certain, as they focus a lot on this like Glare 3, Holy Glare, and High Cure bit. They have, of course, their Temperance. They see them just running around. They have Benediction. They have, there's their High Cure. They have their another thing is Aquaveil and Divine Benison are on the same button. They do use a lily right here, by the way. I just saw it. Yeah, they use the AoE of Flatus. They do have their, I know they have their lily, their what's the name? The flower. Unfortunately, they don't call the flower what they called it in the beta, and I never really adjusted it. But you could see that they actually get an Afflatus effect. Yeah, they go through a lot of like button presses here. So you can see Aquaveil, Divine Benison, Temperance wears off. They get an Afflatus effect from, God, what is that called? It's in Japanese, so it might be a new skill, because they use Tetra. They use that skill, and it gives them a buff, and then it gives them plus Afflatus, and then they get minus Afflatus, and they get Afflatus Solace. And then they can use, that's their other new skill. So they go through so many skills really quick. That's the follow-up to Temperance. I know that they press right there. This one's the follow-up to Temperance. I know that one, because that's in the game at the moment. But yeah, the idea is still that you have all these healing buttons, you have all this really high healing throughput, but that you also get all these other bonuses. Afflatus Solace is a regen. So when they use the Afflatus, after they have the Afflatus effect, when they then use an Afflatus on the single target Afflatus on an ally, it gives them a regen as well. That's the other thing that's different here. That's the thing I was missing. But yeah, otherwise, it's very similar to other White Mage. The consolidation of Aquaveil to Aquaveil and Benison, having the follow-up to Temperance. It's really mostly the High Cure change that they seem to be highlighting here, and the instant casts on their offensive abilities, and Aquaveil combining into Benison. I'm sure there are other small job changes scattered here and there. You can see them. I'm trying to quickly see, because, I don't have the best of visions at the moment. Yeah, Divine Caress right there. Divine Aura. They also get this Divine Aura after, what's it called? Wears off. After Temperance wears off, they have Divine Aura. That might be like residual Temperance for like damage reduction. I'm not sure, because I don't think that's how it works now. I'm pretty sure it's just the follow-up. But yeah, when Temperance wore off, I noticed that they had Divine Aura, and they didn't have any procs on their bar. So I think it was just applying an effect. And then I got into Bard. Now, not just because I play Fizz range, but Bard was my favorite bit. Bard is a lot of the same things, and I'm not going to dig too deep into like certain aspects of it. Like there's a part where we see the dots, and the dots are only 3 seconds. I don't know if that's going to continue to be the case. It doesn't make a lot of sense if it does, but at the same time, it's not too surprising. But they have a performance gauge now, which gives them stacks of performance, which can be used on their songs. And obviously, you still want to use one of each song, but each of the songs is very short now. They still provide a party buff for activating the song, but they also activate a follow-up combo string that comes with it. They still have straight shot and whatever, heavy arrow, or heavy shot. But those are part of a combo. It's heavy shot into straight shot now. And then you can get procs of your of your bloodletters and whatnot. You don't see bloodletter or Ring of Death here, but that's just because they're procs and they still come off of, I believe, your songs being active at any given point. As I was looking before, that seemed to be the case. So Mage's Ballad gives you access to your dots. You use Mage's Ballad, and it will give you, they'll go over this in a second when they press it. It gives you access to your back-to-back dots. They become their own separate combo string. And those only tick for 3 seconds. Again, I'm not going to dig into that. But while the song is active, you can see they are getting Heartbreak Shot resets. And also they get, I forgot, Imperial Arrow is also part of their combo string. I also think it's, Straight Shot's called, is it called something else here? Let me double check. Meteoric Arrow. Yeah, so they wanted to confuse. That's what I thought. I remembered it being different. Then, of course, you have Paeon, which, sorry, I'm just squeezing through here. You have Paeon, which gives you kind of like an AoE combo string, a really, really rapid one, almost machinist-esque. But it is an AoE string of skills. So you can see they will use, Quick Knock here, although it's called something different. It's called Harmonious Hail. They get Reverberant Barrage. They get Rain of Death. Yeah, you can see they just get the back-to-back with the finale with the Resonant Arrow at the end. And then for Wanderer's Minuet, they actually get access to a 3-stack buff. That is, it starts with, their Apex Arrow into their Blast Arrow, and then into this final charged attack, which is like Thrum of the God's Bow. But they also get a 1-button press for Hawk's Eye, which will, I'd assume, increase the damage and give you a direct crit of the next skill. So the idea is you'll use that before Thrum of the Goddess, and then do that big charged attack, which, by the way, Bard having a cast bar back, when it's something as cool as that Thrum of the Goddess, I'm perfectly okay with it. Like, do not hate caster Bard when the skill looks that very cool. So yeah, that's going to be, you're going to rotate through all 3, and then that gives you access to Radiant, Encore, and of course, the follow-up that comes with that. Each of these songs, of course, comes with their own buff, and I believe the Radiant Encore still also comes with its own buff as well. However, my favorite thing is the change to the backflip. It is no longer a backflip. It is called Wanderer's Volley. And it actually allows you to gap close in any direction. So if you're moving in a direction and you use it, it'll like do a side roll, which is really, really cool. If you use it when you're standing still, though, it just acts as an OGCD. So you do not need to use it for movement, which is why they left it with its damage on. But it can be used strategically to quickly move around a boss, move around the field, and actually, do a lot with it. They do have Pitch Perfect as well. I didn't see what gave them Pitch Perfect. I think it actually is Wanderer's Volley that does it. So you do benefit from using Wanderer's Volley. Yeah, so they get their Pitch Perfect proc off of using Wanderer's Volley. So there's a lot of integration between the skills and situational use for these, but you'll also have times where you just don't have the use, so you need to use them for the sake of dealing damage, and weigh that with the option of when you might need it for its other intended use, which is to move around the battlefield. But you can see, yeah, they go through that. They're just going through the songs right now. We already went through this, and they are getting procs on occasion. You can see they go through the rapid combo here, bam, bam, bam. And because you still get buffs from your songs, I'm assuming you still want to like kind of weigh that with how often you go up, because you can't stack the effects. As soon as you go over to Minuet, the party buff changes to Minuet. So I'm wondering how quickly the math is going to show you want to change. And then you can see they do the Radiant finale with the Radiant Encore ready. And bam, big follow-up attack, but also a small raid buff for, about, I think it was 12 seconds or something. It looks like a 10-second raid buff, but it also overlaps with your other effects. So you might want to, stack this with you could see they use Ballad. They get Ballad from their ally right here. So Bard does still have some raid buffs involved in its kit. It's probably like the 1, 2, or 3%. Who knows, Radiant Finale is probably also 3%. But that's like a core thing for them. They have some of that, but they don't as you can see, it's not really like a 1 or even a 2-minute thing. It's just like, when it's ideal and when other people would be getting their buffs, it would be Bard's responsibility still to synergize a little bit with its allies, whereas we didn't see that with Dragoon. And again, we'll see that a bit later. So yeah, they have some cool stuff here. It looks like they still have most of their utilities. They have an Interrupt, they have the Bind on the bar, they have Peloton, they have Arm's Length, they have a lot of that stuff. And they still have their Troubadour, which will, of course, probably be used for damage reduction as well. So yeah, I thought what we saw with Bard was really cool. And it was the last job that we saw before they kind of explained some other core elements of the evolved combat system. Looks really fun, really mobile, and I hope that we see other similar changes for the other jobs, because this is really like a lot more defining. Like I'm okay with like dots not being an identity if this is like what we can expect. You know what I mean? It's one of those things. Creating a system that even more players will enjoy. Yeah, and the evolve system, because it's not very button intensive, they can do a little bit more with it when they want to add new skills or if they want to add new combo strings. So I'm sure that's another big reason. So removing synergy actions for reborn mode and evolved mode. That's basically, there's no 2-minute buff window. They're really more about dynamic moment-to-moment gameplay and less about anything else. Basically, you're not really going to be focusing on, oh, I just got to build to my 2-minute buff. I just got to build to my two. No, it's really going to be about individually playing well and gauging how you use your skills situationally. And applying that to how much damage you do. And following just the rules of your job, not wasting button presses, not forgetting to press skills. So it's meant to be a lot more straightforward and a lot more simple. I won't know how I feel about it till I play it. But like I said, PvP has some pretty good job identity. So I don't really care about not having our DPS as much if I'm having more fun playing the job. That being said, I do think that there is something to be said about in a raid party feeling like you and your team are actually working together and are not 8 individual players just playing the game. And 2-minute buffs kind of feign that. They're really more of an obligation than an indication of playing together, if that makes sense. But there's, again, when I see certain raid buffs go up, I kind of apply that knowledge, like, oh yeah, that person's in my party, and that means I have this much time on the buff, and I know what skills will align with that, and there's like signs you can look for, right? That even help with just the flow of battle as a whole. That's not going to be there anymore, and I'm not a huge fan of that, in all honesty. But if the jobs are fun to play, I will forget about that after the fact. So it really comes down to how it feels to play. I'm glad that there is some synergy still with things like Bard, especially because that's my role. I want to feel like I'm contributing in that regard, and I'll be glad to have that. So it'll probably be a role I actually feel a lot more comfortable with instead of being a meme, in all honesty. Even though I probably still will have, lower damage than the rest of everyone. But yeah, they just use that slide to say that basically they're breaking the cycle. They're not doing like 2-minute buff windows. That's not like their entire design philosophy. And they said the big thing for this is that it allows them to design encounters that do not have that same flow. Like, oh, we do 2 minutes and there's kind of like some boss pressure, and then the boss does maybe something not as crazy for a little bit, or you don't feel like, you just kind of do your 2-minute and then you stand around waiting for the next thing to happen, in a sense, because they try to like put some pressure on the player during a lot of 2-minute buff windows to make sure that there's like this height of excitement, but it's usually met with kind of like a boring fall off. So they're just trying to break that cycle where the boss activity needs to drop off and skills are more dynamic, so that way you feel like, you're not like, oh, I can't do this because my 2 minutes up, or doing this during my 2-minute feels bad. It's like, I will have to play my job to the best of my ability, given what the boss is asking me to do at the same time, and it's not going to be focused around a 2-minute buff window. Again, I won't know how I feel about that until I see the design, but fight design in Dawn Trail has been peak. So if it can improve even from there, great. Because that's just better for everyone, in my opinion. Especially with the new advanced mode coming in. We have a mode coming between normal and savage. We don't know if it's called advanced, but everyone with variant advanced recently has kind of adopted to calling it advanced mode, right? I think this is going to be even better for the casual player who's looking to bridge the gap between the 85% of the players that do normal and the 20% of the players that do savage. Having the more dynamic combat system and having more moment-to-moment decisions is probably better for that mode, especially. But I'm very curious to see what they will do in the future. Adjusting acquisition levels. In evolved mode, you basically get all of your main actions by level 50. So you can see here, Paladin gets like literally everything defining about their job for the most part. Basic 3-tier combo, main actions, job defining actions, specialty actions, and then after level 50, you get like follow-up skills or traits or adding effects, like branching effects. Like maybe you get Holy Spirit early, but the fact that it can also be used as what's it called? I can't do. Brain's not working. You can use it to heal yourself. That could be unlocked later, So they want you to have all the core aspects of your job by level 50. So everyone feels good at every major like level cap range, but you have even more things after that you can play with. after effects, branching effects, all those types of things. That's evolved mode only though. So it seems like they are trying to push people more towards evolved mode, and given every job after the existing 21 will only have evolved mode, I think that they just only want people playing evolved mode. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Reborn mode doesn't survive past a certain number of expansions, because supporting it in addition to evolved mode seems to be extra. I think they really just want people to gradually move towards it and then support it as long as they feel like they need to and then move on. They haven't said that. That's just my interpretation, because evolved mode is doing a lot of the things people asked for, but Reborn mode's for the people who are just kind of okay with the way it was before. But the fact that the new jobs won't even support it, I don't know, that means will they really support it? It's hard to think they'll support it long term. You know what I mean? If they're already kind of phasing it out with new jobs. But that's just my interpretation. They haven't said that, so, you've been warned. And then this is the other thing, defining main tank and off tank roles. So Paladin is a main tank, skilled at taking direct damage and actions to counter enemies. The new tank will also do that, tentatively a double shield tank, just saying. And then the off tank is skilled at lowering damage taken by allies and actions to lower enemy damage. So I predicted this. I said, if they really want to do something when it comes to defining roles a little bit more, something they had said in interviews, the tank role was really the one main role that doesn't have definitions within the role. There's kind of like a full definition for, melee DPS, for fizz range, for caster. There's like a full expectation on the role. And even healers were split, shield and pure. So main and off tank was something, or first and second tank as I tend to put it. I was like, well, I feel like that's the next logical thing. And they actually did almost exactly what I thought. I didn't say the skilled at countering enemy attacks thing. I didn't say that. But the skilled at taking direct damage and skilled at lowering party damage, I literally predicted this like 2 or 3 weeks ago in my tank video. So I'm not going to say I called it, but I kind of called it. And that was kind of the end of the dev panel, was that information right there. They just go back into game and just shoot it on Bard a little bit more and just talk a little bit more about how they're developing this for, the players and for the future of the game and all that stuff, and how it'll help them with encounter design. And yeah, they just like ran through the jobs again real quick and just did another little gameplay session. And yeah, that was it for the dev panel. Pretty solid panel. Again, I still don't know what the 7.0 gold saucer, the 7.5 gold saucer update is. They still haven't told us that, so I'm very confused. But I'm sure they'll tell us about it sometime in the near future. It's a new mini game. I thought they would tell it here. Maybe they'll tell it during the Q&A today or something like that. I don't know. I really thought they were going to talk about it today, or during the first day of a FanFest, and I haven't heard anything. So maybe during the random Q&A. But yeah, that was it for the dev panel. I'm just skipping through to make sure there wasn't any other slide or anything that I forgot. But I'm pretty sure they're just working on, fluff talk and outros right here. And Hikaru Tamaki, aka Mr. Prime, who is responsible for a lot of these gameplay systems, and there they go. So with that is going to be a wrap for my coverage on the dev panel. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of spirited discussion about what to expect out of Evolved mode after this, and whether people like it or dislike it. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, and be sure to like and subscribe. Stay tuned for more information on Final Fantasy XIV Fan Festival and 8.0 and 7.5 in the immediate future. And if you enjoy my channel, consider becoming a member. It comes with some emotes that you can use in the comment section below, and I'm going to be adding more to those over the next several weeks, especially as if I gain more members. But completely optional. There's nothing paid locked behind it. It's just a means of supporting the channel. And if you don't want to, just keep enjoying the videos. That's all you need to do. And I appreciate that in its entirety. So with that, I will see all of you in the next video. And until then, I bid you adieu. Bye-bye.